This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. Ordinarily on a Monday, I'd be taking you through a lick that I thought was kind of interesting and that I'm trying to get into my playing or something like that. I do get occasional questions about, a few elements of my playing which I don't think I can really get into, particularly in those lick lessons, just because it's not what those things are about. But I wanted to do a little bit of a slightly longer format of solo. Because people ask me about tabs for the intro stuff, which is always improvised, and so I don't personally feel like I have the time to transcribe sort of 1-2 minute improvised stuff, but also I don't really think that that is just improvisation, whereas there are things that I might have written that might be possibly better. So I'm going to try and do a monthly thing for you guys on Patreon, where I'll put up a tab of, like, say, a solo that I quite like from something I played a while back. And today is the first installment of that. This was recorded in 2009 in Bath when I was at uni. I was in a band with Isaac, Ollie, Jeremy, and Pete called Artisan Quarter. We used to dress up in clothes from a charity shop, women's clothes specifically, and although, not like dresses, but like blouses. It was supposed to kind of look a bit proggy. It was like a prog band. If you skip to the end of the video, I'll show you from the actual CD in my car. I don't have a CD player in the house, but I got one in the car. So I'll show you kind of what it sounded like in context. But it was recorded in my bedroom in Bath, and I overdubbed it 7 times at the time. So I basically looked at my rack of guitars and just picked them all up and played the solo with it. But this was a solo that I played the same pretty much every time. I've added one bit on the end. But yeah, I will tab this and put it up on Patreon tonight with a backing track. But I thought, if this is a format that you guys are interested in, I can pick out some bits and pieces that I quite liked from my playing that aren't just improvised, if that makes sense. I've got at least one other thing which I think could suit this really well. Although that album hasn't been released yet, annoyingly. But anyway, on with this. Patreon for the backing track and Patreon for the tab. We're in C sharp minor for this, or E major, because it's kind of... The fact that I can still remember exactly how this solo goes after over 15 years pretty much, a decade and a half, I think shows me that this solo did something for me that probably nothing else that I've ever done has done quite the same thing, because I can still remember how it goes. So that's probably a good sign in some ways. So this is why I probably think this is probably the best solo that I've ever recorded. Fits into 16 bars, as you think probably a lot of kind of great solos that are memorable probably are shorter than we think in some ways, and I think that can be quite a good thing to try, kind of like writing solos like this. Anyway, let's just get into it. Is my first phrase. That's my opening phrase. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. and it hits with the snare, so you get a gap to start with. 1, 2. And what are we actually doing here? We're kind of in the E major position on the 12th fret, and we're starting on our 14th fret with a full bend up to the 16th fret, or like our major 7. So we come, probably got that from Guthrie. This is probably the sort of thing I was listening to at the time. So kind of start with a bit of a pre-bend or a very quick bend. So down to the 13th fret on the G string, 14, 12, 14, 11, and then we rise back up to the 14th fret here, up the scale, so 14, 11, 12, 13, sorry, 14. And I would start that with an upstroke. Okay. Okay, then 12th fret to the E. And this is the sort of thing that I do a lot of, where you, instead of bend sometimes, I prefer the slide, because I get a bit more control of it. So what this is one of the things that I think is key to my phrasing. You might not hear me often do that. You might, particularly on like the 9th. So if I'm playing an F sharp in E, or the 7 if I'm playing a D sharp, I'm oftentimes approaching it quickly from below. And there at the 16th fret as well. So not a thing that you maybe want to use all the time, but I think can have a really interesting sound. Like that, right? 12, 14, 15 to 16. And then G sharp arpeggio, or E major arpeggio. Starting on the 7, on the 11th fret, 12, 13, up to our C sharp on the 14th fret. So, okay, so that's our first kind of couple of phrases. And then we're going to jump down to this kind of C sharp minor or pentatonic type shape, but so 12, 9, and then slide into that 11th fret, so a slide down, and then back up for that. So 11, 9, 11, 9, 9, hammer on quickly, 9, 8, 11, 9, 11. So that's the thing that I would do all the time. That particular phrase. Okay, and then we're going to rise up. 9, 11, 9. And we kind of, 11, just slide to nowhere with our ring finger. Or aim for the 14th. Like that. E on the 12th fret, 16th fret G sharp, F sharp, and then kind of outlining a B triad, F sharp, E, D sharp, B, and that's our first half of the solo. Okay, then this comes out of the Pat Metheny playbook or the Alan Holdsworth playbook. And we're kind of pulling off from the 14th, chromatic 13, 12, 11, and then 12, 14 back up. And then this one probably comes out of the Guthrie playbook, but we're going to start with a little slide 13 to 14th. As again, as I say, if I'm playing that 9th note, I'm often sliding into it. So like that. Kind of little jazzy type. So 14, 14, 12, 15, 11, 14, 12, 13, 12, 14, 12, 13, 11, 14, and I think like, and then 11, hammer on, 14 quickly, 14, 11, ending on the F sharp. Just a fairly jazzy lick. Probably wouldn't get away with this in many contexts, but since it was like proggy type stuff, it kind of worked nicely. But you know, this is the sort of thing that if I was recording a solo for someone else, I probably wouldn't stick this in. Okay, then we come down here to our lowest note that we get in the 7, and we kind of repeat the same idea up an octave. 7, 9, 7, 7, like that. So 9, 11, and then that similar idea, 11, slide up, 13, 12, and slide back down into the 11. Okay, so we get and then I wanted to chuck in a lick that I actually wrote on many years later, maybe 10 years later, because I thought it works quite nicely. Which I think would have been a better way to end it than how I actually did. Which I think is... something like that, I think, is how I actually ended it. So 11, 9, 11, 9, 13, 12, 11, 9. Then that same idea. 11, 9, 11, 9, 12, 11, 9, 12, 14, 12, 11, 9, 12, 9, 12, 14, 9, 11, 9, 13, 9, 11, 9. So all together, 2, 3, 4. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. As I say, like there's little bits and pieces in here which I'll try to kind of as accurately as I can stick into the tab. But you know, little things that I do that I probably got off someone, maybe Pat Metheny. Little articulation things, which hopefully by doing this slightly longer form, like whole solo thing, I'm able to talk you through some of the other little bits that maybe wouldn't come out if I was just doing a lick lesson. I hope someone gets something out of that. As I say, I'm going to put the tab up for this on Patreon later this evening, and the backing track. It's going to take me a little bit of time to get through that, but I just wanted to maybe explore this idea of some longer form solo type stuff, so that instead of just talking about a specific lick, maybe we're kind of thinking a slightly more musical way about things. You know, by doing my own stuff, of course, I can avoid copyrights and stuff like that. So I hope that was useful, somewhat interesting. I'm going to go put this on in the car so that you can hear a bit of it if you're at all interested. Catch you in another video soon. If you like this video, if you like this format, leave a comment below. Maybe like the video, maybe share it with your nan and see if she wants to learn this solo too. But something like this, maybe once a month, where we're thinking about a slightly longer piece of music. I don't know. Let me know if you think that's interesting. Cheers for stopping by.